So hey, welcome into my kitchen. Today I am taking a little bit of a break from doing all my gardening chores and I am going to make some peanut butter cranberry granola bars. And the great thing about this recipe is that they are incredibly simple to make, and the list of ingredients you can mix and match out with any different kind of things that you like, seeds and nuts or dried fruits. And you don't even have to bake them. You can if you want a chewier texture, but I prefer to just leave mine unbaked and I store them in the refrigerator. Really awesome to have when I am hungry after doing some gardening chores. I can just grab one and eat it, or actually one of my favorite things to do is just have one with my cup of coffee in the morning. So let's take a look at the ingredients that we're going to be using today, and just know I will put a screenshot of the recipe at the end of this video, as well as I will put a written one down in the description below. In today's recipe we are going to be using crunchy peanut butter. We are also using honey, half a cup of salted butter, vanilla extract, that's my homemade, I just reuse that container. The dry ingredients, we have quick oats and powdered milk, and I use powdered buttermilk because that's what I have on hand and it really doesn't change the flavor from regular powdered milk. Now just know that there is a difference between instant milk and powdered milk, so be sure that you get the powdered because it won't turn out the same if you do it with instant milk. We are using Craisins and pepitas, which are just dry roasted pumpkin seeds. I am also going to be putting in some finely chopped almonds, and then flaxseed meal, or you can just take whole flax seeds, and I have my coffee grinder right here next to it and I just throw them in there and whirl them quite a bit. I don't quite put them into a powder, but I get them really finely chopped and I kind of enjoy that texture in the granola bars. So let's start putting all these ingredients together. Okay, I mentioned that this is really easy to make, and what I like about it is you dump all the wet ingredients in, mix it, and then you dump all the dry ingredients in and mix it. So the first thing I'm going to put in is half a cup of honey, and I honestly do not measure with the measuring spoon. I've just been cooking so long, I just kind of eyeball it, and it turns out just fine. Just opened a new jar of honey and it's awesome. And if you saw in the ingredients list, the large jar of honey that I have, it's actually something that I buy from Azure Standard. If you're not familiar with what that is, I will try to remember to put a link down below. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I do purchase from them quite a bit. Okay, so we got the honey in. Now the next thing we're going to put in is the crunchy peanut butter. And down below, when you go to look at the recipe at the end of the video, or if you look at the written ingredients in the description, you will notice that I have two different versions, and one of them, well, the recipe has an asterisk next to the peanut butter, and that's the two different versions. So you can do a thicker granola bar, or you can do kind of a creamier, I guess you'd say, granola bar. And the difference is the amount of peanut butter that I use. So I am going to add in today 1/4 and 1 cup of peanut butter. And this is what makes it creamier. The other recipe, or the other version, just has 3/4 of a cup. All right. Got that in there. And I have to tell you, I am a scraper. I always am like, well, if the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup, I'm going to get all of it off my spoon that I can. Then we have to melt some butter. I got it all melted. Now we're going to add in that half a cup of butter. And then 2 teaspoons. I actually go a little heavy on the vanilla because I love the flavor. So 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then we are going to, took my paddle off so it didn't get in the way. We are going to just mix the wet ingredients until they're incorporated. right, now we are going to add the dry ingredients. So we're going to put in 3 cups of quick oats, and of the powdered milk, it calls for 1/4 cup. It's usually about 4 tablespoons or of my serving spoon. And on this part, we're going to add the seeds and the nuts, but let me show you what I'm going to do. So I was talking about my coffee grinder. I actually have 2. One I kind of set aside just for doing coffee if I ever do. I usually buy pre-ground. But the other one I use for herbs and nuts and anything else I need to grind up because it works really well. So I'll just fill that up. And then kind of like a food processor. You probably could just use a food processor too if you wanted to, but I just give it a whirl till it's kind of ground up. There are still big chunks in here and there. So I'm going to add those in, and it calls for 1/2 cup, but like I said, this recipe you can literally adjust anything that you want. Instead of 1/2 cup of this, you could put 1/4 cup and then add something additional if there's other seeds or nuts that you like. So I'm just gonna do that. And then my coffee grinder is a little messy, but I'm going to actually do the flaxseed in there as well. So it calls for 1/3 cup of flaxseed meal. And again, you can buy that made at the store, or you can just grind yours own up in the grinder. I'll go a little bit smaller. That's pretty finely ground. We'll put that in. And then I am going to put in 1/2 cup of dried craisins. Might be a little bit more than that, but close enough. And then I also am going to add today 1/2 cup, roughly, of finely chopped almonds. So we have a Winco, which is, I think, mostly the West Coast still, but they have all kinds of things in their bulk food section, which I'm very fortunate for because I can get almonds sliced, whole, raw, toasted, smoked, or chopped like this. Okay. Scrape my paddle off here. All right, now I am going to take and just dump it into this pan. You don't have to grease it. And then I just kind of take my spatula and work it the best I can into the corners. And it doesn't really matter right at this step, because the important thing, see if I can get this all off of here, is that next I take a piece, you could do another piece of parchment paper if you want. I just used wax paper, and you lay it on top, and then I just go around with my hands and I press it down into the corners. And the key about making this, at least this recipe of granola bar, whether you're doing it with the version with a little more peanut butter for gooiness or a little less for a little bit of a firmer, is the pressing down in the pan. And you really want to get it pressed down hard. So I'm just going to work on that. You can kind of see, if I can move that, and you can see it's getting close. I still need to press a little bit more. And the gooier version, it does move around a little bit easier. Much in that corner. Okay. And I just kind of give it a rub to get the top as flat as possible. And then I actually just leave this on top of the bars. And then I'm gonna stick this in the refrigerator and wait for about 2 hours. And then when we come back after 2 hours, I will show you what they look like. All right, they've been sitting for 2 hours. And the reason why you wanted to make your parchment paper wider and longer is because then you can just grab a hold of it and lift it up out of the pan. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm just going to take the wax paper off and expose my delicious granola bars. And then I just take, I have one of these. You can use a knife, doesn't really matter. I have several of these. You actually can get a version of this. It doesn't have a rubber handle. It just kind of has a curled metal piece at the dollar store. But I just take this and kind of score. I can get all the way through. And I am making kind of good sized granola bars, so I will just do a line down the center this way and then score them all this direction. So I have the granola bars all cut. There are 14 bars. And all I'm going to do is take each one and individually wrap it. Right, then I just take my plastic wrap and get a piece that's maybe twice as wide as the granola bar. And I grab one of the bars, lay it down, and I fold each side over the top. And then I just grab the ends and fold the ends over. And then I have a nicely wrapped individual granola bar. So now I'm going to show you the difference between these chewy ones and the more firm version that I made a couple days ago. Difference between the two based on if you add a 1.25 cups worth of peanut butter versus the regular amount of 3/4 cup of peanut butter. You can kind of see this one has more of a, I don't know if you want to say gooey or a chewier texture, and this one is literally more like a dense granola bar. So if I take this one, you can kind of see it's just softer. My husband, the kids and my husband asked if I'd put chocolate chips in this one this time, and I did. It makes it a little bit too sweet for me, but he thought it tasted like a cookie, so he loves this version. I do like them both. This one is the one that is just with the 3/4 cup of peanut butter, and you can see it breaks a little more easily, and it is kind of, like I say, more like a granola bar. And then I just found this little container at the dollar store, and it works pretty handy. I just stack them in there. I have them 2 deep. I did have them 3 deep, and it came just above the lip of the container, but I just put them in here. It makes it really convenient to open up the fridge and grab a granola bar for breakfast or for a snack. And they're healthy and they're packed full of great stuff. So hopefully you'll give these granola bars a try. And like I said, you can mix and match any kinds of seeds or nuts and dried fruits to your preference and make them your own. And as promised, here is a picture of the recipe, and don't forget there is also a written version in the description below. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time.